Welcome to our very first lesson of the Graphing Masterclass. In our first lesson, we'll be talking about what a graph is. So by the end of this lesson, students will understand what a graph is and its purpose in math. Students will also recognize how graphs help us interpret and solve problems. We'll also go on to identify different types of graphs used in schools and everyday life. So let's get into it. So in the introduction, let's look at a very simple scenario. Let's say, for example, a business that sells products. For example, they sell shirts, dresses, and shoes. Now, at the end of the month, this company needs to come up with their profit margins, the total sales, and revenue. So this is where we can use a graph, or the company can use a graph to estimate or make predictions whether they are making losses or profits. Alright, in another scenario too, we can use graphs to predict climate change over time. So for example, over a period of 10 years, we can predict how the climate is going to look like over a period of 10 years because climate change is the significance of 10 years. So then what is a graph? In mathematics, a graph is a pictorial representation of data or relationships, often using points and lines to show the connection between variables. A line graph connects points to display how variables changes over time. For example, a line graph might show how sales, which is the y-axis, changes over months, which is the x-axis. In essence, points represent individual data values, and lines help visualize the overall pattern or relationship between those values, making it easier to understand and interpret data. In math, we often use coordinate graphs like the XY grid, the bar graphs, line graphs, and pie charts. But in this course, we'll mostly focus on coordinate graphs, where we use two lines that intersect, one horizontal, which is the x-axis, and the other vertical, which is the y-axis. Before we use the coordinate grids, let's look at why we use graphs. Graphs are used to typically represent data, making it easier to understand trends, patterns, and relationships that might not be apparent from raw numbers alone. They simplify complex information and facilitate communication of insights to a diverse audience. So by the look of a graph, you can make sense out of the graph looking at the variables depending on how the graph may look like. In a typical example, a line graph could show the average monthly temperature, which is the y-axis, for a city over a year, which is the x-axis. Each point on the graph would represent the average temperature for a specific month. The line connecting the points will show the overall temperature trends throughout the year, highlighting seasonal changes. So this is one of the few examples as to why we use graphs. Alright, so now let's look at the importance of graphs. 1. Graphs help make predictions like estimating future values. We use graphs to visually compare data, and also we use graphs for visualizations of patterns and trends. Graphs are used to track personal finances, plan for events, and make informed decisions. We can use graphs to track the performance of students over a period of time. In short, graphs help us visualize data. So for example, in a classroom, we can use a simple graph to determine the height of students. We can also use graphs to manage finances over a period of time. A person's spending habit can be put together in a simple graph. This can help the individual make informed decisions. So to end our lesson, let's look at these key vocabularies that we've learned so far. Graphs, data, axis, and coordinate plane. We said a graph is a picture that shows relationships using lines, bars, or symbols. Data means information which is usually in numbers. Axis is a reference line on a graph, which is X or Y. And the coordinate plane is the grid formed by the X and the Y axis. Let's evaluate our lesson with these two questions for a quiz. Number 1. What is a graph used for? A. Telling stories. B. Showing relationships between numbers. And C. Only for science experiments. So your right answer will be B. Number 2. Which of these is not a type of graph? So the underlined keyword is not. We have A. Line graph, B. Picture book, and C. Bar graph. If you chose B, you're right, because graphs are not picture books. In summary, graphs help us see relationships and make sense of numbers quickly. In the next lesson, we'll look at where graphing really begins, the coordinate plane. I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and I hope to see you there. Thank you.